Welcome, everyone. Come on in, grab a seat. Welcome to this Masterclass Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have all of you new instructors here with us today. Look, I know that standing in front of a classroom full of young, eager faces, knowing you're the one expected to teach them how to read, well, it can feel incredibly daunting, right? You might look at the English language and think, wow, this is just a chaotic jumble of exceptions and rule breakers. But I'm here to tell you, as your guide today, that English spelling is actually a beautiful, highly predictable code. And today, we're going to unlock that code together so you can pass those keys straight to your students.
Okay, let's dive right into this with a classic mystery. Why on earth is the A in cat pronounced as a short ass sound, but then the exact same letter in the word table suddenly stretches out and says its own name, A? I mean, think about it. If we just tell kids to memorize these words based purely on how they look, we're basically setting them up for massive cognitive overload. They're literally going to hit a wall. To truly teach reading effectively, we've got to step away from rote memorization and really embrace the sheer mechanics of sound.
So here is our syllabus for today's explainer. We'll be covering the English spelling mystery, the mechanics of sound, open and closed syllables, the magic E rule, and the lazy schwa. And finally, I'll wrap up by giving you a concrete classroom teaching toolkit to empower your students. I know it sounds like a lot, but trust me, we've got this.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the English spelling mystery.
To truly understand effective reading instruction, we actually have to look at the historical flaws that caused a functional literacy crisis in the first place. For the longest time, the dominant method was this look and say approach. You can see that over on the left. This basically forced children to guess whole words based on their visual shape or context clues. It was essentially treating English like it was a language made up of thousands of unique, arbitrary symbols. It totally overloaded their working memory. But today, championed by linguistic experts, we use synthetic phonics, which you'll see on the right. This approach is absolutely scientifically backed. Instead of guessing, we teach children to synthesize or blend the smallest, purest particles of sound. They aren't just memorizing shapes anymore, they're calculating algorithms of sound. It's a total game changer.
Moving right along to Section 2, the mechanics of sound.
Now, this right here is the absolute bedrock of our entire curriculum. Before we can read words, we absolutely must master phonemes and mouth shapes. These are your 5 short vowels. As instructors, you've got to model the physical articulation of these perfectly for your kids. For A, your mouth is wide open like you're biting into a crisp apple. Ah. For E, it's a slight smile. Your jaw drops just a bit for egg. Eh. For I, your teeth are almost closed, lips pulled back for ink. I. For O, you want a perfectly round mouth for octopus. Ah. And U, just a relaxed, slightly open mouth, kind of like a confused for umbrella. And listen, here is a critical rule for you as teachers. When you teach the consonants that pair with these vowels, you have to keep them pure. A B is a crisp B, not a heavy B. If you add that extra sound to your consonants, the whole blending process is just going to fall apart.
So the crucial point is what we actually do with those pure sounds. We use something called continuous blending. Picture a slinky toy being stretched out. When a child reads the word mat, they shouldn't be chopping it up into t. If they do that, by the time they finally get to the t, their working memory has completely forgotten the m. Instead, we want to stretch those sounds out so they physically touch each other. At. The breath never stops. It's this beautiful, elastic, continuous flow of sound.
Okay, Section 3, open and closed syllables.
Now, this is where the magic really starts happening in your classroom. How do we explain a closed syllable to a young child? Well, we tell them a story. We use Ms. Bilkis's brilliant, incredibly kid-friendly house and door analogy. Just imagine the vowel. Let's say the A in CAT is a little kid playing safely inside a house. Suddenly, a big consonant, the T, comes along and slams the door shut. Bam! The door is closed. The vowel is trapped inside, and because it's trapped and feeling a little scared, it lets out this tiny, short little sound. Cat. I highly, highly encourage you to literally draw a house on your whiteboard with a closed door to make this super visual for them. When the door is closed by a consonant, the vowel sound is short.
But, hey, what happens when that consonant just walks away? We get an open syllable. Imagine the word me, M-E. There is absolutely no consonant at the end to shut the door. The door is wide open. So the vowel E looks outside, feels completely free, totally confident, and just shouts its own name at the top of its lungs. E. It becomes a long vowel. This simple house and door analogy is fantastic because it instantly demystifies for young minds exactly why vowels change their sounds. Closed door, short, scared sound. Open door, long, confident shout.
Let's jump into Section 4, the Magic E Rule.
And this brilliantly illustrates another really powerful tool in your phonics toolkit, where words undergo a literal magical transformation. Imagine the word tap. It's a closed syllable, right? The P closes the door, so the A makes that short ah sound. But when the magic E arrives at the very end of the word, it just sits there, quietly. It makes absolutely no sound itself. Instead, it magically leaps right over the consonant and casts a spell on the vowel, forcing it to shout its long name. So tap instantly transforms into tape. Hop becomes hope. It's such a simple little rule, but it unlocks hundreds of words for early readers.
All right, moving on to Section 5, Mastering the Lazy Schwa.
Now, I will be the first to admit, English does have some pretty tricky advanced mysteries. But as instructors, we have really fun, logical ways to demystify them for our students. Enter the schwa. This is literally the physics of word stress in action. In English, we don't stress every syllable equally. When a syllable is heavily stressed, we're using a lot of energy. But the unstressed syllable, our jaw just completely relaxes. The vowel loses all of its energy and becomes incredibly lazy. It just kind of collapses into this weak, apathetic sound, which is represented by that upside-down E symbol you see there. Think of the A in the word about, or the O in doctor. It's not a clear, crisp O, right? It's a lazy schwa. Teaching kids that vowels just get lazy when they aren't stressed really takes all the frustration out of spelling multisyllable words.
And speaking of mysteries, we also have to teach what we love to call ninja silent letters. These are letters that are fully written out on the page, but make absolutely no sound when spoken. We have the silent K in knee, the silent W in right, and the silent B just hiding out there at the end of comb. Now you might be wondering, why on earth are they there? Well, it's all because of historical linguistic shifts over the centuries. They are essentially like ancient fossils left behind in the words. By playfully framing them as stealthy ninjas that are physically there but make zero sound, kids readily accept the rule, and they learn to spot them without getting confused or frustrated.
Finally, we arrive at Section 6, Your Classroom Teaching Toolkit. Let's move to this and see how it all builds together. It is time to take all of this wonderful theory we've just discussed and put it into a practical, daily classroom routine. This right here is Miss Bilquis's proven instructional sequence. First, direct instruction. You model the pure phoneme clearly, heavily focusing on that mouth shape. Second, blending. You guide the students to synthesize those sounds continuously to read a word. Third, segmenting. You actually go in reverse. You give them a spoken word and have them break it apart into purely sounds for spelling. And finally, step 4, application. You immediately put those words into short, decodable sentences. And listen to me, never, ever skip that application phase. It's crucial. To make that whole sequence really sing, here are some essential teaching hacks for you. Use sound buttons. I mean, literally draw little dots right under the letters on the board. The kids physically touch each dot for the pure sound, and then slide their finger across to blend it all together. Grab a slinky toy. Stretch it way out for continuous blending, or bounce it up and down to show the natural rising and falling of word stress and intonation. And absolutely use multisensory play. When you get to those longer words, have the students use their fingers as imaginary cutting knives to physically chop the word into syllables right there in the air. Making this a full physical adventure literally locks the mechanics of reading into their brains.
I want to leave you with this final, empowering thought today. You don't need your students to memorize thousands of words. You just need to give them the key to the code. Now go unlock the magic of reading. You see, you are no longer just asking kids to stare blindly at pages and guess. You are teaching them the physics, the mechanics, and the sheer, beautiful logic of language. You now have the ultimate toolkit. So, what's it going to be? What will be the very first word you decode with your new students tomorrow? Get out there, trust the structure, have a ton of fun with these analogies, and just watch your classroom completely transform. Thank you so much for joining me for this Masterclass Explainer.